Bonjour, la France. Okay, I'm not going to speak French porque mi français est très mal. But it's very nice to be here again in Nantes. Last year I was here and you all wore masks and I couldn't see any of you, so it's nice to see your beautiful faces this year. So we're going to talk about testing web applications with Playwright. So I'll do a quick introduction and then I'm going to ask you a few questions. So my name is Debbie O'Brien. I'm all those things that it says it up there. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Debs_O'Brien, and you'll basically see pictures of me cycling or running around the island of Mallorca, where I live. And I like to do 3 hours of sport a day. The reason I'm telling you this is not because I want you to think I'm amazing. I know I am. But because I want you to basically, to make sure you kind of take life and not just sit in front of your computer for 12 hours a day, but that you actually have a life, go out there and do sport. If you don't like sport, find something you like, but do not spend 12 hours a day on a computer, because that's just not good for mental health. So make sure you have a life. So yeah, I used to work at Nuxt, so I have the Nuxt logo up there, because I'm still an ambassador for Nuxt, but for those of you in France, Nuxt is from France, obviously, so I used to work for the French. That was cool. Okay. Enough about, actually, one more thing about me. This is my claim to fame, because I learned JavaScript thanks to open classrooms. So I always like to, when I come to France, say thank you to France, thank you to open classrooms. I am on this stage today. So apparently I've helped so many other people not give up on coding and learn to code and learn to program. So yeah, my whole story is documented on the Open Classrooms website. So thank you to Matthew and Pierre for creating Open Classrooms. Who here used to study with Open Classrooms? Yeah, almost half of you at least. Excellent. Cool. So let's find out a little bit about you. Are you writing tests? You sound like in school. Yes. Do you like writing tests? No. So yeah, sometimes, some of you. Okay, that's kind of half and half. All right. Why do you not like writing tests? It's boring? Flaky? Too much time? Same? Okay, so time, flakiness, and boring. No other problems, right? Cool, I'm going to fix all those problems today. Excellent. Easy. Okay. How can we fix the problem of testing? How can we fix this problem of boring and takes too much time and flakiness? What's the solution? You don't have a solution. That's why you came here. I know. But maybe one of you might know. Any of you have a solution? What did you say, sorry? Practice. Practice writing tests. Practice makes perfect. Yeah, that's true. Go on. Anyone else down there? Automatic test writing. Yeah. Excellent. Automatic test writing, so you don't have to write tests. Any other way we can make it less boring, less flaky, and less time-consuming? Yes? TDD, test-driven development. Oh, that's hard. But yeah, it's very cool. You should do that. But no, I don't do that. Okay, don't worry. I'm going to give you all the answers to this question. I'm going to save everyone from all your problems. Because yes, testing is hard, as we said. Testing takes time to learn. It takes time to build on continuous integration, which is always a problem. Time is money. That's what the product manager is telling us, right? You know, we need to get this shipped now. Let's remove something. Let's eliminate accessibility and testing and everything else and just make money. That's all they care about. And one of the things I think is we don't have a testing culture, right? We're not used to testing. It's something that we do as an afterthought. It's something that we say, oh, we'll do that later, like accessibility. Oh, we'll do that later. Whereas if we start to think about testing from the start, when we're writing our code and building our application, then we start to testing just becomes part of our culture. Okay, so that's what we kind of need to create, is a better culture. So how can we get developers to write more tests? The answer I'm going to give you is to use Playwright, right? That's why you're all here. First of all, who here has heard of Playwright? Okay, not bad. That's about 40%. Who here is using Playwright in production? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh my God, I need to do a better job. Okay, well that is why I'm here. I'm here to change your minds on testing, to make testing fun and easy. I'm going to make sure that you have 3 hours a day to spend doing sport, and I'm going to introduce you to Playwright testing. So Playwright testing is reliable end-to-end testing for modern web apps. It works on any browser, so you can test, even if you're on a Windows, you can test Safari. You can test any browser from any platform. One API. Tests run in full isolation. What that means is if you have a test here, this has got a browser context, the next test will have a different browser context, and they don't like talk to each other, right? So there's no state leaking from one test to the other, which should solve your flaky problem, because then you don't have to clean up between tests. If you want to, like, obviously share data, you can do fixtures and page object model and all that kind of stuff, but your tests run in full isolated contexts. Playwright is very fast, so everything runs like in parallel, so it makes it super fast. And we've got some powerful tooling, which I'm going to show you today, the tooling. And it's also multi-language. So let me tell you more about the language. If you are, hang on, who here is a JavaScript, TypeScript developer? OK, excellent. Most of you. Are there any Java developers? Oh, there's quite a lot of you. OK, excellent. Any Python developers? Yeah, not too bad. Any .NET, C# developers? OK, cool. So there's a good few mix there, right? So Playwright works with all of these languages. I'm going to show you TypeScript today, but everything that I show you, almost everything you can do in those languages as well. So just keep that in mind. So I'm going to show you VS Code, how to get started with VS Code, because it's just a lot easier to visually see, OK? Any VS Code users? Excellent. Cool. So don't worry, if you're not a VS Code user, there's still time. So when you look for the VS Code extension, make sure you go with the one that says verified by Microsoft. There are a few there, but the one verified by Microsoft is the one that we're constantly building, maintaining, and improving. Once you install that extension, then you literally just type test install Playwright, and you're going to be able to install Playwright just from there, so in any project or a new project. And then it's going to ask you which browsers do you want to install. So you can say, all right, I want all those 3 browsers, Chromium, Firefox, and WebKit. Or maybe you only want to test on Chromium or WebKit or whatever. So just choose whichever one. You can always change it later, so don't worry too much if you're kind of like, oh, I'm not sure. It's easy to add it to the config file, so don't worry. There's a little box there that says use JavaScript, so if you're still afraid of TypeScript, you can click that box. I know, I used to be there. I used to be one of you. Now I'm TypeScript all the way. But yes, it's TypeScript first, but it totally works in JavaScript, so you can click that if you need to. And then the last one is the add a GitHub action. So this is really cool. Just by like checking that, I get a GitHub actions, which means my tests are going to run on continuous integration without having to do anything. It just works. It's just like, yes, this is amazing. So make sure you click that. So once you've installed, this is what you're going to get. You get the GitHub folder for the GitHub actions. You get a test folder with the example test, very simple example. I'm going to walk you through that example. Then in the test example one, there's another whole test of a to-do app. You can go through that in your own time. And then the Playwright config, that's where you change those browsers if you wanted to use another browser or wanted to test on mobile, or if you wanted to start a dev server locally while you're testing, before you write the tests, before you test, you could set that in there. So that's the config, but basically you don't have to touch the config. Everything just works. So running tests, you can run all tests, run a set of tests, run a single test. All tests run in parallel for free. You don't have to do anything. It just runs in parallel, and it's super fast. So this is how to run a test. So we're using VS Code. Again, if you're using terminal, you can totally just use the terminal, or if you're using other languages, you can open up in the terminal, etc. And on line 3, you'll see that lovely green triangle. And we're just going to press that green triangle. And once we press that, it's going to basically run through each line. It's going to open up a browser, and it's going to do exactly what that test expected it to do, which was just click on the Get Started button, open the installation page. So super fast. My test has passed. And just by clicking that Show Browser checkbox, that's how I can actually launch that browser. If I don't want to launch the browser, I can uncheck that, and then I don't have to watch what's going on. Live debugging, because we never have bugs, do we? So if you do have bugs and there's things going on, you can live debug, and you get nice error messages in VS Code. So here we go again. I'm going to like break my test. So I'll take the get started. I'm just going to change and put the word star. Running the test fails. It says strict mode violation. And it's giving me 3 options and saying, like, which one do you want here? Now, we might not understand the log or the error messages, so we can set a breakpoint, rerun that test in debug mode, and then we can have a look at what's going on. And on the browser, it's basically saying to me, like, there's 3 variations of the word star. Star is in the word get started, star is in the word star, and star is the word getting started at the bottom of the page. So Playwright is kind of saying, which one do you want? I don't know which one to click. So it's going to fail, right? And strict mode is by default. That makes it less flaky because it's very, very strict, right? So you can then play along and say, right, get star. There's only one of those. So that would be an OK selector because that's not going to fail. And you could put something like, say, imagine we put the word Playwright in here, right? Now it's going to go, like, there's like 14, 12 of these, right? This test would break completely because there's too many. But you can see, as you're live debugging, how many selectors are on the page, and it's highlighting there in the browser, and you can live play around with that. So that kind of makes debugging a little bit easier. So talking a little bit about locators. Locators are a way to find an element on the page. I like to think of it as like, you know, a pin from Google Maps, right, where you just drop that pin. It says, like, this is a locator on the page. And it's built-in auto-waiting. That means that you don't have to set a timeout, right? It just basically waits for everything to be ready, for the JavaScript to be enabled, for the button to be there, to load animations, etc. And it will retry it. So if it's not ready, it will just retry and wait for it to be ready. So this happens out of the box. And you could set up a locator like this, which is used with the page.locator with your selector. So you've got page locator, if you're using a data test ID, for example, and that click method there. So you've got the locator and the selector, and it's strict by default. Now, that's using the test ID. The test ID is great if you need to use a test ID, and you sometimes, many times do. But I like to use locators that are kind of user first. So this is me and Kent C. Dodds. Anyone know Kent C. Dodds? Yeah, you don't have to know him personally, but you know him from the web, right? Kent C. Dodds wrote Testing Library. Anyone used Testing Library? Excellent. You've gone very quiet on me. What's happened? You're all tired. OK, so Testing Library. Basically, we've changed the APIs in the last release, so 2 weeks ago, to make the API a little bit more closer to Testing Library, which basically makes it more... I find it easier personally, but it's easier for like accessibility because we're going to use things like get by role, get by text, get by label, get by placeholder. You can still use the ID like I just showed you. You can still use CSS selectors. You can still use XPath if you want. But this just makes it a little bit easier. So this is kind of what it looks like. So if you're writing your tests now, this is what we recommend as a best practice. Page get by label, username, fill it with John. Then page get by label password, fill it with secret password. Page get by role button, the name of the button is sign in, click that button. And then expect the page with get by text, welcome John, to be visible on the page. So there's a simple, easy test. What do you think? Good? Yeah? I like it. I think it's much better this way than the other way of like just, you know, having to find your locator and then put like, say, CSS or text equals or whatever. So yeah, this is the recommended way going forward. And thanks to Kent C. Dodds for helping us on that one. So I'm going to show you how to pick selectors, right? Because you're kind of saying, OK, how do I learn all this? How do I know which selector to choose? Here's my website. Here's something I need to test. How do I find the right selector? So we're making your lives easier, right? Testing should be easy and fun. So by clicking this Pick Selector box, we're going to be able to choose the selectors. So here I click Pick Selector. I go to the web page and hover over it, and it's showing me the selector that it recommends to me. So once I click on it, it's going to add it in that Pick Selector box. So get by role heading name is installation. And then I can just press Enter. It's going to copy it to my clipboard. And then I just paste that into my code. So now I have my test with this selector. I mean, that will fail, obviously, because I'm just playing around. But you can go back in there and start picking other selectors. And as I hover over get by role link, name how to install Playwright, and I'll hover over again, get other selectors. So this one is get by role button, name, switch between dark and light mode. And then I can modify that if I didn't think that was a good selector. But basically, picking the selector just by hovering over the page, it's going to pretty much give me a very, very, very good selector that can be used in my tests. So that's easy way to get started with picking your selectors. What do you think? Are we going good? Yeah? Okay, excellent. See, it's going to be fun. I told you, this is like, you know. So make sure you're using web-first assertions when you're writing your tests, because this is going to give you the auto-weighting for you, right? So make sure you're using to be checked, there's to be disabled, to be editable, to have ID, to have JS property, to have screenshot, etc. So make sure you're using web-first assertions, and then everything's just going to work magically. So let me introduce you to codegen. Codegen is my little friend. He's not perfect, he does make mistakes, but he's pretty good. Just like GitHub Copilot, you know, it's pretty good. It can be like, makes mistakes sometimes. Codegen will generate your tests for you by recording your actions. So now you're going to understand how I get to do 3 hours of sport a day and still write loads of tests. So let me show you codegen. So again, you can use the terminal to start this up in any language. So it works in Java, in Python, in C#, and in TypeScript, JavaScript. I'm going to do it through the VS Code extension. So in here, I click on Record New. It's going to open up a file in VS Code. It's just opened up the browser window, but also the file, test1 spec file. It's imported Playwright, and it started that test block off. Now I'm going to, let's basically test the Netflix website. So I can open this up. Wait page, go to netflix.com, great. I can click on the cookies, because we all love cookies, yay. So yeah, that's got a roll by button, name accept, and it's clicked it, perfect. I can click on the logo. You can see that selector is not great, so I kind of want to fix that code a little bit, so I'll tell Netflix to make that a little bit better. I can click on the heading. Now you might say, why are you clicking on the heading, Debbie? That's not something a user would do, good point. But I want to basically click it so it's there. Later I'll fix that and make it an assertion. So I go through my test talking to myself saying, I want this to be there. So let's go to the help page and let's test that. And we'll click on here. We have a problem here. We can't sign into Netflix. And we'll make sure that heading is there. And here we go. Expect page, get my role heading. Can't sign in. Lovely. Was this helpful? Let's click yes, because, you know, yeah, that's helpful. But let's have a little bit more fun, and let's test the chat. So let's talk to some Netflix people. And let's see, before we chat, none of these, no. Let's just go directly and tell them what our problem is. So let's type in here what we type, something like just testing the chat, right? So we'll type that in here. And what we're going to do is basically test an iframe. So testing a chat, testing an iframe inside a website. We'll send that message over. And they sent me, are these docs helpful? I'm like, no. Can I log in? No. Someone's going to be with me shortly. Lovely. Let's wait. Let's see. Are we going to wait? Are we going to get someone online? And we're waiting for a little bit. They're actually very, very fast. Fair play to the Netflix team. And it actually took about 30 seconds, I think it is. It's pretty good for customer service. So we got Marcial. So Marcial's online with me, and I'm chatting with him, and now I'm feeling really guilty, and I'm like, oh my God. So let's just tell Marcial we're testing the chat. We'll send that message, and then I'll just quickly end it so that we don't bother him too much, and close that chat. Yes, we want to end it. That's lovely. Thank you for your time. Now we're like, let's send a transcript of this message. That would be cool. So I'm going to click on that button and watch this. I'm going to put my email address in. Now look at my email address. You ready? Watching? Do you see my email address? It's just like Debbie, right? And it's sent to my Debbie, just Debbie. There's no email. So they should fix that test. So I found a bug in Netflix, so that was kind of cool. So let's go back here. Let's get down to the menu, and let's see if we can test across another domain. So there's a way from Netflix to go and test your speed. So I'm now going to another domain. I'm testing that. I'm seeing if this is here. Very simple page here, just testing the logo. The button works, and I'm continuing my test. And I could go back then to Netflix and continue that test if I wanted to. That's pretty much enough, I think. So we end that here, and look, this is my test, created for me by literally just clicking, right? So it's testing your user actions. codegen has written all this code for me, and I can go off and cycle my bike or go for a run. And simple as that. What do you think? Cool? Yeah. Excellent. So as I said, it's not perfect, and some of you are thinking, going, this is not great. You just got click events all over your tests, right? And I'm like, I know. But now that's when you need to turn those into assertions, right? So basically, you want to go through your test. Well, let's just see if it works first, because maybe codegen might have got it wrong. It might have picked a selector that wasn't there. So I would normally press play, run through my test, and it's going to come along here, and you can see like it's setting up the chat. I'm going to go through here, chat with an agent, yes, got it, yes. OK, someone's going to be with me shortly. Now, Shania, I've got Shania today. I start chatting to Shania, send that through, and test on the next website there, see the speed limit, and that test works. So that's pretty much what I would do next is test it, but now I want to go and change those to be web assertions. So to be web assertions, because we have the new locator API, it's actually really easy to actually go through this test and change some of those click events to assertions, like the heading and the logo. So you can see here, I've got the expect locator. I changed this to be an ID of Netflix logo. That was better than what codegen was giving me, so that was a little nicer. And then I expect the page get by role heading. So if it's a heading, it pretty much, I want it to be visible. No one's going to click that heading. That's not a click event. Get by role link, that's a click event. So that one's kind of perfect. And I can keep going through my test and going through each get by role heading, turn it into an expect to be visible, turn it into an assertion, and very easily walk through my test and just modify it to be a better test. So now, in a matter of a couple of minutes, I've got a test written, I've got web-first assertions created, and the test works. And we can rerun that test, and it's gonna work exactly as it did before. So pretty easy, right? You've got no excuses now. You should all be writing tests and all writing good tests with web-first assertions. So now you've written your test, you want to see a report of your test, right? You want to see what's going on. So this is now when I need to use the terminal. This is more on the JavaScript, TypeScript side, so this isn't working in .NET, for example. So npx playwright show report. First, I need to run the test in the terminal, npx playwright test. That will run it in terminal, and then I just want to run that report. So report is going to tell me everything about the test, what's happening. So here, for example, it failed on Firefox, but it passed on Chromium or WebKit. And I'm like, oh my God, now I have to debug all this, right? So this is a nice way of seeing what is happening, which tests are flaky, which tests are passing, which tests are failing, etc. And there's a little icon there with 3 bars. So that's the trace, and I'm going to show you the trace in a second. You could also just click into that test and go through the whole log, but I personally love the trace viewer, which is what I'm going to show you. So to use the trace viewer, you would do npx playwright test -- trace on. This is going to give you a local trace. But normally the traces, we recommend it runs on CI. So normally the traces on CI, if your test fails on the first retry, it's going to create that trace for you. Because generally, if your tests pass, you're happy. You don't want to know about what the traces are because you don't need to. But if it's failing, and especially on CI, it's failing on CI, and now you're like, what do I do? How do I fix this? This is when the GitHub Actions is already set up, so you don't have to do anything. It's already in the configuration file. It will record this trace on CI for you. But if you want to play locally like I like to do, you can do -- trace on, and you get the trace locally. So here's my trace of my Netflix test. And I have the top bar there. I can literally just scroll along and see absolutely everything going on in every single action of what happened during that test. So you can see the different colors there as they kind of like change from a click action to the iframe that's going into the iframe there with a fill action, back to a click action. And you can see this is like an image snapshot of every single moment in the test. And I can go back and forth in my own time and kind of see, you know, what happened here. Look, here's my email, Debbie, and then I pressed send. So if they didn't believe me that I pressed Debbie and send and it worked, you can kind of say, look, this is exactly what happened. You need to make sure that that is an email and not just Debbie works and send, right? So you can hover all over along here. You can go through each domain that was tested. And then you can also go down to the menu there where it says actions. So the menu gives you these actions, again, the same, but this time it's a little different because now in the middle, we have a DOM snapshot, not an image snapshot. So this is a DOM snapshot, and we can click on each action, and we can see the red dot there where we clicked. So that's the actual action. And we can see before and after what the difference was, which is nice for testing animations, right? You click here and see the, before it did this, after it did this, where it went to, etc. So you can see here I'm testing the iframe here. And as I go in through, it shows me each different action where it's clicked. And yeah, I'm clicking here, chat with an agent. Let's click on this. And this is a DOM snapshot, as I said, which basically means I can interact with it, right? I can type in here. I can actually type in here, because it's not an image. This is just to prove to you this is not an image, right? Obviously, it's not going to work. I can't actually send that chat because that chat actually happened. But it just means that you can have access to Chrome DevTools, because it's just like a mini website. So you can see animations a lot easier. You can open Chrome DevTools, inspect CSS, and go through all that. You've also got the metadata there, which will tell you if it's running on what browser, if it's mobile, what viewport. And then on the other side, you've got the call, which is showing you at each time what call, the locator.click, the wait time, the duration. You've got the selector, which selector it was, if it was strict mode, and the whole log. So as it's going through each time, what Playwright was doing to get to that point in the test. Then you've got the console. If there's a console log, it will show you the console error or the log. The network request, you can see there's a 1 there. That will show you there's 1 network request on that page. The little X there underneath it was the console error. We could open that and see the console. And then you can see the source code. So you can actually see all the source code of that test, which is good if you're on CI, this test is broken, imagine, and you want to send that to someone. So now you download this zip file, you send it to the developer and say, hey, do you want to investigate this? And maybe they don't have VS Code open with the code. They can actually see the code for this and be able to see, like, oh, I can see on line 300 you have this error, or this looks like it's a bad test, or it's not an assertion, or etc. The trace viewer is a PWA, so it's just hosting it you're locally, or just locally opening it up. So nobody can see your traces or anything like that, so don't worry, it's not hosted, unless you want to host it yourself. But it's a PWA locally run using Playwright. So that's the trace viewer. What do you think about the trace viewer? Great, good, yes, excellent. This is good feedback, so we know to continue working and improving this, or do we continue and just work in codegen, right? So yeah, this is our trace viewer. So let me go into something else with testing navigations. I'm going to, anyone ever written tests to test the navigation? Yes, no? Right, navigation, yeah, a couple of yous. Okay, so we're just going to write a simple test to test navigation. Is testing navigation easy? No. Okay, so for those that have never tested navigation, let's first write the test. So we're going to test some navigation, so we're going to write a test, and we're just going to go to a website you probably all have seen, and we're going to click around as a user. I'm just testing, the schedule is there. Let's click on Thursday, Friday, lovely. Let's make sure the speakers are there. We'll go to the team page, make sure the team page is there. And again, I'm clicking on the heading. I'll later change that into web first assertion. Click on the blog, go along there, click on, the next thing is what, the menu. Click on that, the jobs, the title, etc. So now I've just created my test, easy, right? And it's going to another domain, as you can see, no problem. So here's my test. I can run my test, and my test works. Fantastic. Testing menus is easy. I told you. I didn't know why you're all saying testing is hard. It's super easy. OK, so now I've got my testing navigation, and I want to just now test on mobile, right? So let's test on mobile Safari. So to do that, I go to the config file, Playwright config, and it's all just written there for you, and you just have to uncomment out the mobile Safari. So I'm going to test on the iPhone 12. You could test on Pixel 5 or 7 or whatever. There's a hell of a lot of different devices that you can test on, so choose whichever ones you want to. I'm just going to do mobile Safari just for this talk. So here's my test now, and I'm going to run that test, and what happens, I get my report, and it failed on mobile Safari. Why did it fail on mobile Safari? Because it's Safari. I knew someone would say that. You're horrible to Safari. It's not Safari's fault for everything. Sometimes as a developer, we don't write tests specifically well. Yeah, someone says because it's mobile Safari plus Safari. Anyone else know why did this fail on mobile Safari? Because it's not WebKit. No, it's using WebKit. It's using WebKit browser, and it's running WebKit. So it's nothing to do with the browser. The browser and WebKit, it's opened up a WebKit browser, and it's tested on mobile Safari on WebKit. So it's because the menu is not visible because the burger. Yes, exactly. That is exactly it. So we're all annoyed at Safari. Yeah, and he's gone, damn Safari, never using Safari again. It's not Safari's fault. It's the hamburger because we're on a mobile menu. So now how do we fix this? What do we do? Now we have this hamburger menu, this mobile menu. We've got a different scenario. What do we do, though? How do we write that test? Different describes. So you can write like 2 tests. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We don't like writing tests. Now you want me to write double the work just because it's mobile? Nah, don't want to do that. Anyone else got an idea? How would we fix this? Hang on a second. I've got someone shouting. You go ahead. Give them the same role. The same role. In what way? Click by role, okay. So click by role, and if it's a role, hamburger menu there. And then it would pass on mobile, but then it would fail on desktop. Damn. Yeah. Anyone else? I heard something over here. A fallback locator. I like that idea. What would that do?
Like if the main one fails, then you're going to try different ones until they all fail eventually.
That's a lot of failing. If the main one fails, you can keep trying until something fails, and then eventually it'll work. That sounds terrible. Anyone else got the right answer? These are great answers, by the way. Thank you. I only learned this a couple of weeks ago, so I'm going to show you something I learned like 2 weeks ago when I'm writing this test, and it all failed, and I was like, why is this? And I was like blaming Safari as well. And then we debugged, and then like we found a way. But literally, it was like, I basically said, how can I do this? And I was like, I said something, can I not just do like, if it's mobile, just do this? And they went, yeah. I'm like, what? I'm like, yeah. We have access to the metadata, so if it's mobile, run a test. So literally, like this is all you have to do. You add in the is mobile fixture, you've got that metadata, you've got access to if it's mobile, you pass that in, and then you say if it's mobile, you get the by role, which kind of what you were trying to say. Yeah, get by role button, name, open menu, click, but it's inside only if it's a mobile. It's going to open that hamburger menu, and then it's going to open the link of the schedule, and then continues down. Now, I have to add this in before every click event, because the user also has to click that menu before every single time they click on something, right? So that's what the user needs to do. But it's as simple as that. So it's like, wow, this makes it so much easier to write one test and be able to test desktop, mobile, and cover all these scenarios. So that's kind of pretty cool. Did you expect that? No, kind of nice. It's like, I like this, because I thought I'm the only one that doesn't know this. And like, I'm so glad that you didn't know this either, so this is good. It makes me feel not stupid. So yeah, this is mobile. So I'm just going to show you that it works. So I'm running that test there. It's running it, it's opening that mobile, and you can see it's clicking on that hamburger menu each time, and then opening up that new page. And you can see how I've written in there, if is mobile before each event. And of course, you could take that away and make that a fixture and then bring it in. And this is how I inspected it, right? I just went into the pick selector. I got that role with the name open menu, and that's how I was easily able to just create that test and add that in there in a matter of seconds. And now it's like, yes, my test works, and I can test on all mobiles, browsers, etc. So running tests on CI, so once we got all our tests, we're happy. As I said, it works with GitHub Actions. Now it also works with other continuous integration with Azure and all those other stuff. So don't worry, I'm just going to show you GitHub because I love GitHub. And GitHub's easier for me to show you. But it does run on anything else as well, so don't worry. So this is the GitHub Actions you get. You don't have to do anything. It just is installed for you. So you don't have to do anything. It's just there. And then your tests will either pass or fail. So it's going to show you this test passed, this one fails, so green or red, simple as that. And then we can literally go through it. So we can click on the actions, and we can see the whole log. We can investigate. I don't really like logs, because logs are like, oh my God, you've got to read so much, right? I just like want to see graphics, something, image. So that's the Playwright report there at the bottom. That's what I'm going to click to get that trace viewer, to get that PWA that I want. So I can basically download this from CI. Now I need to use Playwright to spin it up, so I need to use the Playwright server to serve it. There is also a website, trace.playwright.dev, and you can drag and drop it into that and see it locally as well. So that's where your trace is on CI if your test failed. We also have component testing, so if you do want to test components, it is experimental, so you know, things might change, but just telling you. But you can change, test your components, and then you'll be able to see your component in isolation on the page and visually see it. So it's kind of like a little bit nicer than just unit testing and not seeing what's going on. To do that, you will have to install it. So npx init playwright at latest --ct, and you'll need to add that to the GitHub Actions because that's another run because it runs that separate. So just keep that in mind as well. So Playwright testing, basically we have the VS Code extension. We've got codegen, my lovely friend, who's going to auto-generate your tests for you so you don't have to do any work. You can run your tests in debug mode and see that. Again, I showed you the VS Code extension, but you can still see that using the terminal. We've got locators and frame locators, so you can test across iframes. You can see reports and see a trace of all your tests. It auto-waits. Is built in. You don't have to do anything. It's going to auto-wait. We saw how the chat came up, and it waited for that chat to be ready. We waited for Shania and Marcian and all those people at Netflix to be ready to answer us. No extra timeouts were added. Nothing was done. It just works. Tests run in parallel, so it makes it super fast because in the same file, tests will just run in parallel. So it's really, really fast. And it runs across multiple browsers, which we saw, and devices, which we saw. And then it intercepts requests, follows, redirects, bypasses cores, and manages cookies. So Playwright is open source and free. Who is using Playwright? Everybody. Look at it. Like, look at the trends, right? Everybody except you. What are you waiting for? Right? So we absolutely love GitHub stars. So if you do want to check us out under the GitHub on Microsoft, it is open source and free. It's by Microsoft. And we loved stars, so make sure you star us, because then we get super, super happy. And we see that line going up and up and up and up. But yeah, I pretty much want to show you the ambassadors, because they are some really, really cool people who are also helping us to make Playwright even cooler. And they're creating great content and speaking at conferences like I am. So make sure you go on the website and follow some of those and check out their courses and videos and talks. And if you are doing amazing stuff with Playwright and want to become an ambassador, then just click on that button, come and talk to me. Keep sharing the love for Playwright and being part of the community, and you could be an ambassador as well. And giving this talk here next year in French, that would be lovely. So yes, but I have one question for you. Are you ready to Playwright? Yes, excellent. So who here thinks, okay, I'm going to now go home and actually write some tests? Yeah, I love this. This is excellent. Did we make testing fun? Is testing now fun? Yeah? Not yet? Still a little bit of work to do? Okay, don't worry. Okay, is testing now, does that make testing easier? Yes, okay, good. So we've got the easy, we just need the fun. What do we need to make it fun? We need little Mario Gold tokens every time you test pass or something? Yeah? Okay, we'll work on that one. Okay, so thank you very much. This is the docs page, playwright.dev. We've got a Twitter. We have a YouTube channel. We're going to try and create more videos. There's release videos you can watch as well. There's a Slack channel, the community Slack channel. If you have any questions, throw them in there. We can help out. Everything is run through GitHub, so if you have any doubts or something, put it in GitHub, create an issue. And yeah, my Twitter handle is Debs_O'Brien. If you do have any follow-up questions that you don't want to ask right now, you can always send me a DM. Don't send me an email, because I never read them, but you can if you want to send me an email. But do you have any questions? Yes?
Is Playwright compatible with React Native?
Is Playwright compatible with React Native? So React Native, does React Native work in the browser? So everything that we do works in the browser, so it's browser-based. So if it's browser-based, then we can do it. If it's not in a browser, then we can't do it. That's basically how Playwright works. It's browser. But good question. Yes? Sorry, over here. Can you mock APIs? Yes, you can mock APIs, and you can do API testing. And there's a page in the documentation that will kind of show you the API testing to mock the API. Go to the API. I think it tests the GitHub page to create an issue and things like that. There's a good example there in the hat, yes. Thank you.
I discovered Playwright with the Svelte kit.
With Svelte kit, yes, it ships automatically with Svelte. Yes.
Besides being fast and reliable and stuff, some attitude, some things cannot change with people because there is Cypress, and I cannot quite convince my colleagues to use Playwright. I am, but
Okay, he's saying he can't convince his colleagues to use Playwright. He's convinced, but he can't convince his colleagues. Okay, what's the question?
what is your advice?
Tell them to come talk to me. I like to kind of say, you know, when you're running your tests, do you want your tests to run fast? Or do you want to have extra coffee breaks and, you know, maybe they like coffee breaks, so they want their tests to run slow so they get more coffee. That's up to them. It depends on what you need. Do you need to test iframes? Do you need to test across multiple domains? Because it works with Playwright out of the box. There's many, many options that Playwright gives you, like less flakiness. If you have problem with flakiness, then you're not going to, I'm not saying you're not going to have flaky tests, but you're very unlikely to have flaky tests because of the context and everything running in isolation. So it's a lot more stable because of how it's built. You've got auto weighting that's already built in. Do you want tests to run in parallel? Because you don't have to pay for it in Playwright. It just works. Playwright's free. So there's a lot of things that Playwright does out of the box that makes Playwright a very amazing choice that everyone should be choosing. But I understand that, you know, if you're used to writing tests a certain way, change is always hard. People don't like to change. I always say to people, give it a try, test it out. Take 30 minutes of your time. Go and write a test, use codegen, use the trace viewer, put it up in GitHub Actions, understand the workflow, see what it's like, and then decide, do I like this? Is this the way I want to do things? If I like this and this works, then go for it. But always do it like a test, a proof of concept. But great question, yes. You'll have to repeat that. Sorry.
Can you do a test on the canvas renderer output?
Can you do tests on the?
On a canvas.
On a canvas. I haven't done any canvas testing, but I've seen someone do canvas testing, so I think you can. But there's nothing in the docs on it, so don't look for it because it's not there. But I think you can. But again, that's just me seeing somebody who wrote a test on it and not actually having tested it. But good question. But yeah, I think you can. There was someone over here. Yes, there's one. Okay, he jumped the gun. That's okay. Go for it.
Are you planning to develop something to switch from Cypress to Playwright really easily and really fast?
We don't need to because it's already easy and fast. We've got codegen. And someone actually did with GitHub Action, with Copilot, and they had Copilot actually, they put the tests there from another framework, and Copilot learned and kind of started seeing what it was doing and started like helping them write their tests for them. That's one way. CodeGen is another way. But there's no magic button that says, hey, just like bring all the code that way, right? But I think you shouldn't have a problem. No one else has had a problem. But good question. Yes?
Can we use a Playwright in WebStorm?
You can. Somebody else has created an extension, not Microsoft, and they've done a great job. So we're not maintaining it, so it might not be as good and up to date because we're spinning this out really, really fast, and then they have to kind of update it and stuff. But yeah, you can use some extension in WebStorm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, over there in the corner. Yeah, so with Angular and GitLab, it works perfect with Angular, and most of the Angular team, like Protractor is dead, and they're all saying you should use Playwright. So they're basically saying Playwright. We can't do component testing, if that's what you're asking, because the component testing works with Vite, and Vite doesn't build Angular. So if you want component testing, I'll have to say for the moment, no. But if you want to just do normal end-to-end testing, yes, 100%. And does it work with GitLab? Yes, it does. There's a guide in there that will tell you in the documentation of how to do that with GitLab. What, cool? Yeah. So he's asking, is it secure if we're bypassing cores and payments and things like this? So that's a great question that I have no idea how to answer. Some security expert would have to answer that better than me. I haven't played around with the cores things and cookies and bypassing and things like that. But definitely check it out and then send me a DM and tell me what you think. Thanks. Anyone else got a question? Yes.
About automatic waiting, I can imagine that the automatic waiting works in the majority of cases.
So the automatic waiting works in a majority of cases, he assumes.
But I can imagine that there will be some exceptions where you would have to write some manual waiting. Is it possible?
But there might be some exceptions where you might have to write some manual, and is it possible? Yes, it is. So there's a lot of kind of timeouts that you can add to your tests if you need it. For example, I had to do it for a mobile for a conference website I was testing, actually. And the mobile menu, it couldn't open. It just would not click. And we had to open DevTools, and we saw it took like more than 5 seconds. It took 7 seconds for the JavaScript to be ready, because they were running all jQuery and all this other stuff. It was super slow. In this scenario, it's like, developer, you need to fix this website. But at the moment, we need to set a timeout so our test passes. So now we're setting a timeout, and we can manually do that in the config for all tests if you want to, a specific action or anything in the test. So that you have full possibility to change one particular add-in, wait 10 seconds if you want. Or if you have a super slow website for whatever reason, you could just change the minute, I think it's 5 seconds. You could change that default to like 10 seconds if you wanted to. But I recommend writing better code as opposed to throwing timeouts in there. But sometimes you might need it, so great question. Okay, anyone else got a question? It's like a, it's like a auction, going once, going twice. And it is sold. Okay, I just want to say thank you very much. You've been an absolutely incredible audience, and welcome all to the Playwright community. I'd love to all see you there. So thank you.